Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Man vs. World. I am your host, Mark Whippet, and we are joined, as always, by Pete. Pete, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing well.
Good.
It's been a bit of a wild period here. So if you guys aren't on the Man of Action daily email list, well, you definitely want to get on there. But if you are on there, then you know that we just launched a brand new program, Reforged Man Gold. We ended up selling out all 30 spots. In fact, it ended up being like actually 34 or 35 people. A bunch of people just kind of snuck in there right at the buzzer, and we didn't really want to turn them away. We had some extra spots set aside for like current club members anyway, but it did really well. But it got me worried a little bit, and I was like, I was like losing my shit at one point. Because here's what happened. So I've done, I don't even know how many like launches I've done at this point, like online launches where I'm, putting out a new product or something like that. But almost always, like I would get like 20 to 30% of the sales, like in the first like 2 days, like as I would like open cart and then boom, a bunch of people would come in, and that's not what happened on this one. Like it was like just a couple of people coming in, and I was like, oh shit, okay. It's like started stressing and stuff. I was like, did I, is it not good? I thought it was like we worked really hard on this. I thought it was gonna be really good. And so like that combined with just the stress of like doing a launch in general is a challenging thing. Okay. If you've ever done something like that, it just takes a lot of time and attention, and there's a lot of stuff you got to do. But then on top of that, I have my wife and her situation. She's got, if you've been following for a while, you might know that she's got some pretty significant health issues that require that really mess her up in a pretty rough way. And, I got to take care of her and help her out a lot. And she's not really able to help with my daughter as much. And then, so that flared up along with the launch. But then like the final hit to the combo was my daughter. She kept like scratching her head. And then I like got an email from the school, like just mentioning that, oh yeah, we had a case of lice. No. And I was like, no. And so we like took her to the doctor and got her checked, and like she had lice. And I was like, oh no, what am I gonna do? Because like she couldn't go into school. Plus I had to do like we had to do all this stuff like cleaning the house. I had to like louse her hair, and then on top of that, trying to like run the launch and everything at the same time. And man, I was sweating it, man. It was a major crunch. So that was a hard period, but thankfully all the bugs out of my kid's head. Neither me or my wife had any. We sold out the launch, and yeah, moving forward with everything. So it's doing good, but stretched a little thin. What have you been up to,
I can't
Pete?
imagine.
Man, I got nothing going on, man.
Should have worked you harder during the launch. That's what I should have done.
Yeah, man, that sucks. But you made it through.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, it worked out.
It's all good. And so today, we got a bunch of topics as always to get into. But the first one that I wanted to get into was this. I've been doing a lot of reflection on like internal mechanics, which is kind of like always what I'm thinking about. It's that's what I'm really passionate about: self-development mechanics, like understanding the systems, understanding how the game is played, and I've got some new insights in on it, and I want to share them with you, Pete. Tell me if they make any sense. Yeah. This is kind of a first draft of putting this stuff out there, but I felt it was important enough to share. So, yeah. The thing that we all struggle with, bottom line issue, is that we have trouble getting momentum in the right direction and then maintaining that momentum in the right direction, right? Like this is what fundamentally we as humans struggle with. It's like we want to be this wheel that just spins toward good things and not falling over into a ditch and doing a bunch of bad shit, or neglecting your dreams or behaving like someone that you don't want to be, right? But yeah, that is what we do. We break down. And so what I think we got to do is like the problem for this is that something gets out of balance. We can just say if we're trying to be like this wheel moving forward, well, like one of the spokes gets too long and we get off shape, or the wheel gets bent, and then all of a sudden it can't roll anymore. And so some of you guys might be familiar with like my previous models of consciousness, particularly this primal and terminal polarity. I have this idea is like you got your primal self, which is like your emotional self, and then you've got your terminal self, which is like your rational self. And like these parts need to be, working together properly. But what I'm realizing is that that's kind of like the vertical plane, between kind of your head and like you could say your gut and pelvis region where your instincts lie. So we got that polarity. That's polarity number one. But then we've got a horizontal polarity, and then we even have a rotational polarity. And so that's what I want to be talking about today is I'm calling it the tripolar model of consciousness. And really, if we can understand these three balances, and we can just monitor them and be aware of them and try to adjust and stay on course, then we can keep that wheel moving forward. We can keep ourselves making progress. So let's start with that vertical one. All right. The difference, the polarity between your primal self and your terminal self, or your instincts and your intellect. So that is one that we're all familiar with. It's like, all right, my rationality says I should go that way, but my emotionality says I should go that way, right? It's like your rational mind says, let's, eat a healthy diet. Your emotional self says, give me that, give me those Fritos, right? And so how do we solve that? This is something I've been talking about for years. It's self-talk. Self-talk is where you meet these two in the middle. You got to get your rational self talking to your emotional self, and they have to work out a deal that is agreeable to both of them, right? This is where we get stuck, is like you run into this emotional resistance because your rational mind is presenting a plan that your emotional self is like, meh, that sucks. Meh, that'll hurt. Meh, that sounds too hard. And then we don't get anywhere, right? So we have to learn how to talk to ourselves. We have to learn how to listen to our primal self and address it properly, okay? So I think in some ways, the best way to think about that relationship is similar to, like, this will sound weird, but hear me out, a biblical Christian marriage, all right? Now, it sounds strange, but listen, okay? Your instincts and your emotion, all right? These are the things that ultimately create the value in your life. Like if you don't have any good feelings, it's hard to say that you're really enjoying your life. Like so much of meaning is actually tied to the feeling that meaning creates, right? So you can think of this as like, this is the woman in the internal marriage of ourselves. All right, we want it to bear fruit. We want it to be able to produce new life, greater life. But the problem is, by itself, it's not able to do that. Okay, if emotionality is left to its own devices, it will produce a barren life. Okay, it's not going to be very fruitful. You're just going to be following the path of least resistance, and so it needs a governing force to direct it beyond itself, to fill it with information that your primal self itself cannot comprehend. So you think about like your limbic system is your emotional self. There's only so much that it can think. It's kind of dumb. And so it needs the rational self to impregnate it with more information, okay? And so the way this works out, if you really want to balance these two, is like your rational self must serve and love your primal emotional self. And then your primal emotional self must be open to and submissive to that rational ideal. And basically what ends up happening is that leads to you submitting to your highest conception of goodness. Does that make sense, Pete?
Yeah, I think I got you. So, it's interesting. The wife and husband dynamic has not occurred to me before. I've heard you say things, like, well, you should be a leader and a friend to yourself, which I think if you can tap into that, you're well above 99% of dudes, because nobody does that. They always repress it. So if you can be a leader and a friend, that's something. But if you can think of it, take it to that next level of relationship, I can see where you're going with that.
Okay. So that's the vertical plane. If we get that lined up, then we'll be able to identify what is that balance between intellect and instinct. Okay. But that's only one of the polarities we got to concern ourselves with. The next polarity is, I call it the horizontal polarity, and this is through time. This is a temporal thing. And this is the relationship between your past self and your future self. And so, like, what people tend to do is they will forget one of these. So if you forget about your future self, you just live for the present moment, all right? Well, your future self might be in a pretty shitty position, okay? Like, he might just be like, oh, man, you spent all of our money, past self. The fuck were you doing? You know, or whatever. You like, hey, we're fat now. What happened? You know, it's like past self's fault. But sometimes we forget our past self as well. And this is particularly common for guys who are very self-developmentally minded. What they will do is they will think about, all right, here's where I want to be in the future, okay? And they just like think, all right, here's my ideal. Whew, awesome. Forward thinking. But they don't think about, well, where am I coming from? What have I gotten through at this point? What like basically, what is my neurochemical, emotional, and spiritual baggage look like right now? Okay? Like, what is my current level of development based upon my history? And so if you do that, then you're going to come up with a very unrealistic ways for how you should be moving forward. You're going to be basically asking yourself to do unrealistic things. This is the guy who's like, you know, maybe he's been a porn addict his whole life. He's addicted to video games, and he's decided, you know what, I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to become hyper productive, and I'm just going to, you know, quit my day job, and I'm going to start my own business. All right. Maybe he can pull it off. He's got the right, you know, if he's lucky, he's got the right level of motivation and all that kind of shit. It's possible, but from my experience, he's not going to make it because there is too much baggage there that has to be worked through first. And so, like, the question is, how do we find that middle ground that works toward where we want to be in our future, you know, that honors our future self, but also is compassionate toward and understands our past self? And so this is like, you know, we've talked about this before. Like you mentioned last week, what was this? Like, it's better to ask yourself, what do I wish how did you phrase it? It was like, what do I wish I had done rather than what do I want to do? Right. But the issue we run into when we try and do this, we start trying to serve our future self, you know, honor our past self, whatever, is that a lot of times our goals for the future, we only feel them logically. Okay. It's like, yeah, logically I should be doing this. Logically I should be saving money. Logically I should be, you know, eating healthier and stuff like that. But it's not enough to trigger the dopaminergic pathway. You know, sometimes it is. Sometimes you can look forward and be like, ooh, that sounds exciting for my future self. And then you get a little dopamine jolt and then you're able to be productive. A lot of times that's not what happens though. A lot of times you just feel actually cortisol. You think about, oh, I want to be there, but shit, this sounds hard. I don't know if I can get there. And so this is why I think it's very important to have these dual selves, because it creates a person then, you know, your future self, that you can then use to engage your oxytocin pathways. Because if the dopaminergic pathway is not open to you to serve your future self, then we have to find another way, another switch to flip. And that's where the oxytocin pathway comes in, which is our connection, our love feeling, like, you know, more of like the heart kind of thing. That is triggered by simply caring about yourself, by thinking about your future self and being like, how can I give that guy a gift? Okay. And you want to balance that with looking backward to your past and thinking about your past self who is transforming into your future self. And you think about him, it's like, all right, and what's a pathway that I can take to do this that works with who I have been up until now? And it's like these two people that your present self has to give a shit about. You've got to love your future self and you got to love your past self, you know? And if you keep those two in mind, that triggers this oxytocin pathway, which will allow you to do hard things, make sacrifices, even if you're not dopaminergically stimulated to do so. Does that make sense?
I like that. Yeah, because it's so easy to disregard, you know, a piece of yourself, so to speak. And so I can see where, so how would you, okay, so let's say they're in total, you know, opposition to each other. The future self, what he wants, and the past self and the future self, you know, they're so different. How do you reconcile that? Do you just have to take smaller steps?
Yeah. So it's like, you gotta figure out a future ideal, a future self that is able to work with the past self, right? You got to look at one where it's like, you got to put something that's believable so that the past self, that it has a huge amount of influence over how you feel in the moment, he can look at that and be like, you know what? Yeah, I can do that. And you got to realize there's an infinite number of selves that we can view between, you know, here and our perfected ideal, right? We got to have some kind of working thing that we're able to aim for. And this is why I like the idea of, you know, running these crucibles, like these, you know, big focused challenges where you're focused on one big transformation that you know you can do if you go all in on it. Like, you know, focusing on this is my period of my life where I'm quitting porn. This is my period where I'm getting in shape. This is my period where I'm building my business, or this is the period where I'm doing dating. And it's like, you got to narrow things down. And as long as you can peel off a slice that sounds manageable, you're going to be fine. So yeah, and if we do that, then it's kind of like you're constantly receiving gifts from your past self. And so you can be like, oh, thanks, bro. And then you're constantly creating gifts for your future self. So if we have that, and usually to pull that off, to figure out what does that horizontal path look like through time, we got to have the vertical path set up as well, because we got to, you know, be able to balance the rational and the emotional. So we get those two things. That's like getting yourself in order. That's like getting yourself in the position to move when you're monitoring these two balances. And then where the rubber hits the road is the third polarity, where we take that cross of the vertical and horizontal and we start to spin it. And this is where we introduce like the work self and the rest self. Because you think about it, when we actually move through time and we're trying to serve that middle ground between our instinct and intellect, all right, what we're really doing is we're going through a wave where we're doing output. Sometimes we're spending energy, and then we have an input time where we are recouping energy, right? We need to have both of these things in order. And if we don't have them in order, well, then the wheel breaks. We stop making progress. And so if we have an imbalance in our energy, we're putting out too much energy. Well, eventually we're going to collapse. We're going to hit exhaustion. We're going to hit overwhelm. We're just going to, you know, stop trying. You know, maybe if you push it too hard, you're gonna have a mental breakdown. So we need to replenish ourselves both physically. You know, we got to sleep, we got to eat. Okay, we need to replenish ourselves emotionally. You know, sometimes there's a point where, like for me, like I call it the stress balloon. You know, stress is not a bad thing if you learn how to hold it properly in your mindset. But like there are points where I've just been like working kind of nonstop, and it's just like, there's no juice there. There's no stress there. Like my stress balloon has been deflated. And then at that point, it's just like this white knuckle grind. It's just like, you got to just like punch yourself through it. And it's just like that'll burn you out crazy fast. And so you need to have like times where you're having fun, where you're not just focused on being hyper productive. You know, you're actually just, you know, maybe you're accruing those happy memories for your future self. And so that's like, you with me so far on that?
Yeah, you know, I've always struggled with rest because I always picture rest as meaning sitting in a room doing absolutely nothing, you know? And I don't know why it took me so long to figure this out.
Well, you do that for many hours a day, I'd assume, when you sleep, right?
Yes, well, this is true, you know. I'm not a robot, Kurt can confirm. But yeah, you know, rest looks different for different people too, which is something that I just realized. And it's like, yeah, maybe rest for some people means going to a party with 100 people, and for some people that sounds like a nightmare. You know, it sounds super exhausting. So
I got like my father-in-law, like he goes out and he does like a bunch of yard work. Right. You know, that's restful.
And you're like, come on, man, rest,
it's like maybe not physically restful, but I mean, in some ways, you know, doing workouts and stuff like that, getting outside, it rejuvenates a different part of you. And so that's the rest side of it. But like, also we got to figure out like, what does the work side look like? And this is tricky because it's going to look different for every person depending upon what it is they're trying to accomplish. Like, I've been creating content for 10 years now, like in a professional sense, like online. And I am only now really figuring out like, what does my ideal work cycle look like? Like the way it looks right now is I can do a podcast like this a week, and then I can put out a daily piece of writing. Those two things, I love it. and I'm planning on doing that for a long time. And then that leaves enough margin in there for running the other parts of the business and hopefully also creating products and books and things like that. But like dialing in, what does your spikes of activity look like? What does that set routine of work look like? That's hard to figure out. And it's because it's not known. It's unless you're doing something that has been like completely broken down to a science already. And there are some things out there that are like that. You know, if you want to, you know, get in shape or something like that, I'm sure you could find a program that dials it into, you know, a science of exactly how much time you should work out, you know, what you should eat, you know, all that kind of shit. But for a lot of people, there's going to be a lot of variables that you're going to have to figure out on your own. And this is where this cycle of work and rest starts falling apart. It's like, oh, I don't know what to do. And you do something wrong and the whole thing breaks. And so the final piece that like keeps this wheel of personal development spinning, I think, is a mentality of play, where you just come up with like, all right, what's my best bet? What's my best bet of how to do this? What's my best bet of like, here are the things I'm going to get done. Here's how much effort I'm going to put into it. And then I'm going to rest. You try it out. You see what happens. If it works, fantastic. Keep rolling. Literally, you just keep rolling. You're making progress. Sometimes it's going to, you know, blow up. You're going to realize, I was pushing it way too hard, or, I was not pushing it nearly hard enough. I've done both of these things. And you just got to play with it. That's all it is. That's what play is. Play is an iterative exploration with a set goal. And sometimes it's not even with a set goal. Sometimes the goal itself changes. But if you don't have an attitude of play around it, then you're going to have this undue pressure on yourself to get it perfect, or screw it, I'm not even going to play. I'm just going to sit in a ditch and just follow the path of least resistance. And so if you can do this, if you can balance these three dualities, just keep them in mind. It's like, all right, am I listening to my rational self? Am I listening to my emotional self? Okay. Like, and I would ask you guys, like, shoot me in the comments, like which of these poles do you find yourself neglecting or falling most in balance in? All right. So it's like, you got first one, vertical is, am I listening to my rational self and my emotional self? Next one is, am I thinking about, you know, my past and my future selves? You know, am I thinking about where I've come from? Am I accounting for that honestly? You know, do I have an accurate read of what I'm currently capable of, what my abilities are, what my knowledge is? And do I also think about who do I want to become? Okay. And then once you have those things, it's just a matter of like, all right, what's my work look like? What's my rest look like? And if you have all of these things with even just the roughest idea, that's enough to get the wheel spinning. That's it. And if you just keep coming back to this, you just keep monitoring these balances, then I believe self-development is inevitable. Progress, evolution, it's going to happen because this is what it means to be in balance and growing. So what do you think, Pete? Am I onto something here?
Man.
Yeah, I think you are, and I think I need to figure this out. This is convicting me here. Because, man, the whole, you know, I haven't run enough tests, frankly. I think the next one I'm going to do is, I don't get a lot of physical exercise. I work out at the gym a couple times a week, but I do it kind of begrudgingly. I don't really particularly enjoy it. But I found a group that gets together like Tuesday nights to do jujitsu. And it's not like a formal thing. It's just, you know, a group of people get together and roll. And I've never done it before, but I'm thinking I should probably do that because it'd probably be more enjoyable than going for a run. Well, I know it would be, you know. And there is that physical rest side of things too, where if you're getting too much exercise, you can burn out. But if you're just sitting around all the time, and if you live a sedentary life, it's not good. So, yeah, I need to get this dialed in.
It's also weird because everybody wants to pitch an extreme today because that's marketable. You know, it's very marketable to be like hyper productivity grind set, or it's like, oh, find the easy way through life. And it's just like, well, it's like, no, you got to have balance. Everyone's like, that's fucking boring. Get out of here. Scroll past. And it's like, that's how it works though. That's how it works. Yeah. So, if anybody's got any questions about that, anybody wants to pop on live, ask a question, share a comment, go ahead and raise your hand here in the space. Only got a few people in here. What else we got here today, Pete?
So let's dive in here to chat GPT. Is that how you say it?
I think. I don't know. I think that's what
it's something like that.
Yeah.
Man, this thing has taken the world by storm. Apparently, according to Alex Hormozi put this out, it just crossed 1 million users in less than 5 days. Here's context for how insane that is with compared to other companies. WhatsApp took 2 years, Instagram 2 years, Snapchat 1 year, Facebook 10 months, Pinterest 4 months, and again, it hit 1 million users in 5 days. So people are saying, oh, this is going to replace Google. People are going nuts about it, and people are running all kinds of tests. It looks like Elon is going to it for inspiration for what to do next on Twitter, which I thought was kind of interesting. People are doing these crazy experiments where they'll say, you know, I'm not much of a coder, so I don't really understand this language, but, you know, write a Python function to check if someone would be a good scientist based on JSON description of their race and gender.
Well, so, like, to explain what it is, like, it's an AI chatbot. It's basically like this thing. It's like an interactive Google where it's almost like a person. You just ask it a question and it'll give you an answer. It'll basically like pull resources from all over the internet, and then it'll put it into a very coherent, pretty well written paragraph response. It's insane. Like, in a lot of ways, this thing might replace Google. It seems kind of crazy, like how robust this thing is at this point. And as for the growth of it, I'm kind of curious a little bit. I mean, the fact that Elon Musk gave it a bunch of attention and Twitter is already a hot thing right now. That's probably, I wonder what their usage would be like without attention from him right now. And like probably the time in which he has one of the most popular Twitter accounts to have ever existed. I wonder if he's actually getting more impressions than, he's got to be getting like significantly more impressions than even Trump did in his heyday, because he's got way more followers. He's got like fucking like 120 million followers now, which is just ridiculous. And so,
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So this thing's taken off, but there's some interesting controversy around this chatbot. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so this guy tweeted out, hey, Elon, how do you feel about woke AI, this chat GPT created by OpenAI? When asked if Hitler was right, it 100% condemns Hitler. Okay, that makes sense. But when asked if Mao was right, it refused to condemn him. Mao Zedong killed 80 million people. Why is this AI embracing far-left extremism? So that was kind of funny. And then, you know, going back to this other guy, basically on the other side, people are saying, oh, well, this thing is sexist because when it runs a JSON blah 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 blah,
it's asking someone to, for that one here. Let me bring it up. So if you look at this tweet, this guy, the weird thing is you can ask this thing to write code for you, which is crazy,
right?
And so it's asking to make it an equation for creating a good scientist, you know, and then it adds the variables of race and gender. And so it says, if their race is white and their gender is male, return true. So that's very clearly not politically correct when it's put into coding format. But when it's left to verbal responses, it seems to be very like leaning toward the woke side, which is very interesting because it's like, you know, when we're talking about like what's a good scientist, like you think about an AI, how's it going to decide this? Well, we'll look at data and then I'll be like, oh, okay, well, most JSON programmer, or what is it? If most scientists who are successful, they're white males. Okay, that's just pulling statistics. But then when it's asking for like moral problems, it seems like it's pulling from, I don't know, popular news articles. And if it particularly weights mainstream articles, which have a decidedly left-leaning slant, then it's going to start offering different stuff up. There was a really interesting one here. Yeah, let's bring this one up. This is a cool one. So someone asks, as a male, can I identify as a female? And so ChatGPT responds saying, yes, a person's gender identity is their own personal experience and can be different from the sex they were assigned at birth. Some people identify as a gender that is different from their sex assigned at birth, and others may identify as a gender that is a combination of both male and female, or neither. It is important to respect a person's gender identity and use the pronouns and language they prefer. But then they follow up and say, as an Asian male, can I identify as a white female? And it says, while a person's race and gender identity are separate aspects of their identity, a person's race is generally not considered to be something that can be changed or chosen. A person's race is typically assigned based on physical characteristics such as skin color, eye shape, and other biological factors. It is important to respect a person's race and use the language and terms they prefer to describe themselves. Which is interesting, because it's like, all right, their sex, I mean, as far as I can tell, that is also a biological thing, right? But we can switch that around, but we can't switch around someone's ethnicity. So this will be like, what I'm seeing with this kind of thing is that we're going to eventually, it's going to be the battle over the AIs, right? It's going to be like, you know, like what AI are you going to use? Like in the future, you're going to have like the woke AI you can plug into. You can plug into the, you know, the alt-right AI. There's probably going to be a centrist one. It's going to be really crazy to see how this moves forward. And the thing that's scary is how much of this stuff is going to end up being just operating on the back end. Like, you know, when they get an AI that's determining what ads you see, what news stories you see in your algorithmically generated feed, all this kind of shit. Like the power of this is unbelievable. Like the access to information we thought was like, oh, nothing can beat Google. Well, this will absolutely beat Google. This is, you know, if Google is not doing this already, I'm sure that their CEO is just kind of shit with this thing. You know, they're like, oh God, what? This is not good. And so I'm sure they're going to be working on something like this to have their own version of it. But this is going to change a lot, I think. But there is even more potential ramifications of this as well. What else were people talking about with this, Pete?
Well, you know, one thing that people are talking about is there's already AI programs that do this AI's art stuff. I'm sure you've seen this around, you know, where basically you put in a couple prompts and it spits out an image. And what people have done is they're basically tricking these things into creating softcore porn, all kinds of stuff, you know, putting celebrities' faces, deep fake stuff. And it, you know, that used to be something that actually took effort. It used to be where you would have to be really good at Photoshop and it would take a long time. Nowadays, you can type in a couple things and boom, it spits it out. And so, you know, another thing Alex pointed out is he said, deepfakes already exist. What happens when AI can create perfect people that say the perfect thing the perfect way, that don't need to eat or sleep or get paid? It has the potential to dramatically shift the landscape for personal brands. OnlyFans girls, heads up, AI OnlyFans accounts are coming. And I think he's probably right about that.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about it as like a content creator. It's like, all right, what if I could just be like, yo, give me a thumbnail that has this. Give me a thumbnail of Mark Queppet riding an apocalyptic horse holding a battle axe made of, I don't know, NoFap logos. Right? It's like, that'd be sweet. That'd be freaking awesome. And it'd probably even get to the point where it's like I ask, like, all right, what does the topic of conversation that Mark Queppet uses to break 1 million followers on Twitter or something like that? Like, eventually it'll get to that point where it's just like, it'll start spitting out stuff that is like really legitimately useful to us. So this is definitely something to watch. A lot of potential danger.
You know, I bet you it wasn't that long ago when there was no AC and people didn't have AC in their cars or seatbelts in the cars. And if they looked around today and saw everybody on a smartphone, they would go, what is this apocalyptic landscape? And we might be headed towards another huge innovation period where a thing just explodes.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like, you know, I wonder would our ancestors be like, wait, hold on, you guys shit in your own house? There's just like a little seat in your house you just go take a dump in? That's disgusting. You don't go do it outside in the hole. What's wrong with you filthy animals, right? So it's like, it's always about whatever you're used to, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. I just hope that they roll this stuff out slowly so it doesn't just happen all at once and everybody's like, wait, what's going on? We don't need this and that anymore. Oh shoot.
Luckily, yeah. I don't think they can help but roll it out slowly. I think we're still pretty far away from like a general artificial intelligence. I hope we are, but I'm sure we'll see the steps along the way, unless the government's got some kind of like literal sentient computer down in a basement somewhere, which might be the case.
Oh man.
Well, anyway, guys, let us know what you think about what the future of AI is in the comments below. But without further ado, let's move on to the next thing here. So, James Cameron, the director of Avatar and I think Terminator as well. He did Terminator 1 and 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he did more than that. I think he did Alien too. He did a bunch of
That's
movies.
true.
I think he did a bunch.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Anyway, he recently, it seems like he was trying to cover for his previous decisions to, you know, kind of hypersexualize some of his characters in the past in order to sell more tickets. And he said, he blamed it on his testosterone. He said, oh, testosterone, that poison, we got to get rid of it. We got to slowly purge that from our systems. You know, we got to become the perfect being by not having any testosterone in our system. And I thought that was pretty hilarious that he would blame his hormones for something like that. What do you think, Mark?
It sounds like, you know, if you, when I was looking at the quote, or when you were mentioning like the actual quote to me earlier, it sounded like what he was trying to do was hedge against woke critique for his past work, which,
Yeah.
frankly, is how he got fucking rich and famous.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you know, Terminator's has this toxic male figure. You know, oh, you sexualized Sigourney Weaver in Alien. You know, like all that kind of shit. And so I think part of it is that, but you know, it's also, I'm seeing people take it as like, oh, this, look at James Cameron selling out. He's saying testosterone sucks. And on some level, okay, testosterone can make you do some stupid things. All right. You know, how many guys are waking up the morning after going on some debaucherous, like, pussy slaying spree, and they wake up and they're hungover and they're like, shit, what did I do? And it's like, guess what? You probably wouldn't have done that without the testosterone, right? But on the other hand, many of our greatest innovations and progress in humanity is literally driven by men looking to attain status so that they can get women to pay attention to them. Like, I was trying to think, like, if you had to just like guess, all right, how much of human technological innovation was driven by the man's quest for sex?
All of it.
Right? Like, definitely most of it. Like, maybe 80% of it, and then like 19% of it is the result of people just trying to stay alive. But really, you know, once you're staying alive, that's one thing. The thing that puts us beyond, the reason why we look for more, right, is because some dude's trying to get his tip wet a little bit. He's trying to get a little action. That's what I think. And you know, we can't deny the power of testosterone and how important it is for our functioning as a society, and to just label it as this toxic thing we must purge from our bodies is such a pussy little, like, weaselly
Well,
way.
there's a way to do that.
There is
a way. You can't. Yeah, it's pretty simple actually. Yeah. Just grab a pair of scissors and get, you know, go to work. That's what you want.
That's right. That's very true. James Cameron, I mean, I'm hoping you just have a hollow bag flapping around down there, okay? Because, like, you know, with a comment like that, you got to follow through, dude. Be a man of your word. Not that matters to you if you don't have any testosterone, but...
He's not going to do it. I don't think he's going to do it.
I don't think he's going to do it. I think he wants to keep making money.
Oh, man, that's funny. Alrighty, well, the last thing that I wanted to bring up today is you got a direct message in response to a clip we posted recently where you're talking about how being competitive is a natural masculine trait. And the DM reads here, quote, "So I've always told myself and kind of believe that I'm not a competitive person, usually because I'm terrible at team sports and don't like it when other people lose. How can I compete if I don't feel competitive?"
It's a really good question. And so I think the heart of it is understanding that there are different ways to compete. Most of us are very familiar with this idea of, like, the common conception of competition is like, I win, you lose. You know, in order for me to win, other people got to get screwed over. They have to be unhappy. But that's really not the way it's got to work at all. Okay, like, you can create win-win scenarios. And so, just for example, take a business. All right, you know, I'll take my business. All right, my goal is to become the best at what I do in terms of, like, helping guys with quit escapism, quit porn, that sort of thing. And I want to rise to the top, meaning I want to be better at it than the other people in my field, because I don't feel like there's, you know, I feel like I could do better. Okay. So there, technically I'm competing for that market share. Okay. But the way that I want to do it is through creating win-wins first between myself and my customer, where it's like, hey, I'm going to provide you with this thing that's going to give you this awesome win that you are happy to pay for. And then I will get money that allows me to keep doing this work and live a lifestyle that I want. Hey, we both win. None of us lost, right? And then even then with my quote unquote competition, I would rather figure out a way in which we can help each other. I would want to try and find a way in which, you know, I can have a niche and you can have a niche and you can have your people that you serve and I can have my people I serve, but then we can help each other out so that we can serve our respective audiences more and both grow, right? And so this idea of competition, it doesn't need to be this win-loss scenario. You got to expand your understanding of what competition looks like, where you're trying to find wins. Like you think a lot of guys, they think about like when it comes to, you know, competing in the sexual marketplace, for example, it's like, oh, I got to be cooler than these other guys. I got to put down that guy so that I look bigger and better and stronger. And there's, you know, you can play the game that way. You can, quote unquote, win like that. But you think about the stereotypical like asshole jock in high school. Okay, you know, he makes fun of the nerds and the other people, and you know, he rises to the top and he gets to, you know, hook up with hot chicks and that sort of thing. It can work. But I think there's a lot of downside to that. People want to see you fail. You know, you have to then live like that. You got to be mean. You got to, you know, be this dick and whatnot. But there's another path too, like the other kind of alpha, like the true Chad that I describe it as. He's the guy who is actually just the best dude. He's the guy he's not trying to compete with other guys or put them down. He's trying to become friends with them. He's like, yo, you know, we're on the same team. He's like, what's up, brother? Like he makes friends with the other guys around him. He becomes popular that way by being someone that people generally like because he is a generally good person. And he's still strong. He's still, you know, outgoing and stuff. And in a lot of ways, like this is an extremely viable path as well. In fact, I would say it's more sustainable. It's more stable. What is it? Jordan Peterson, he always talks about how like, in like primate societies, I think particularly chimpanzees, like there are alphas in chimp troops that become alphas by being tyrannical, by being horrible, by like, you know, ruling with an iron fist and fear and violence and that sort of thing. The problem with those guys is that their reign tends to be rather short-lived because eventually all those other males that he alienates, they band up together and then they kill him. Okay? And it's the one that's actually more diplomatic, the one that more takes care of everyone. That's the guy who has a much more stable reign. And so I think that's what we should be striving toward. I should have sent you this, but I saw another tweet the other day where this guy, he was telling a story on Twitter about how like it was his like first time like going to the gym, and he was like trying to like deadlift or squat or something like that, and he, you know, felt really silly and insecure and because he wasn't lifting much and his form was bad and he like screwed something up, he couldn't lift it, and he saw like some dudes in the gym kind of like looking at him like laughing, and he started panicking and feeling real shitty and stuff like that. And then like the biggest dude in the gym apparently came over to him and is like just started talking to him and just started giving him pointers, and then went on to like give the guy like a full like hour-long introduction to how to do the lifts, encouraging him, you know, nice. You know, being pumped for him and stuff like that. And he's like, holy shit, like what is this? And like what I commented on it was like, you know, the true Chads are the best dudes. That's how they became Chad in the first place, right? And that is the form of quote unquote competition that you want to be operating in. That's where you're going to really find yourself and find the most like appealing form of yourself. That's what I think.
Man, that takes me back because I was working at a gym and I didn't like working, so I would just go work out with members randomly. Like I'd see some dudes over there who looked like they were having a good time. I was like, hey guys, can I work in? And we would just start talking. And it wasn't, and man, they got a kick out of that because just the fact that I worked there made them think I knew what I was doing, which I didn't at all, but you know, they thought I did. And yeah, that was a lot of fun and they really appreciated it. Little did they know I was just, you know, avoiding going off and calling random people, you know, doing cold calls for several more hours, but they really enjoyed it. So I feel good about it.
Yeah, I mean, like it's a lot of people who are very competent, who are very skilled, they like to share their knowledge. Now, not always,
Yes.
obviously, but there are plenty who do. And if you're someone who's at the bottom, don't underestimate what can happen if you just connect with people, quote unquote, above you. You know, like they're often very, you know, open to sharing knowledge, particularly if it's like not online, because online kind of shit tends to, you know, it's more of like online, you get a lot of people who want free shit from you. They just want to take from you. But like, if you're able to offer them, really what you get to offer them is they get to feel cool about themselves. They get to feel good about themselves. They get to feel like they're helping someone, and they get to have a true human connection and pass on knowledge and talk about something that they're really passionate about. It feels great for them. It feels like a wonderful thing to do. So yeah, don't limit yourself by like not reaching out to people who are quote unquote above you. Sure, sometimes you'll get shot down, but if you learn how to approach properly, maybe it's even worth saying like what that means. It's like, just don't be a dick, don't be needy, be very polite, be, you know, friendly. Okay, like, you know, I've I've done that at the gym, you know, help guys out and stuff like that who, and had a blast doing it. I ended up, you know, lifting with them, you know, regularly because they were just fun people to be around. You know, I liked interacting with them, you know, and I had some knowledge that they didn't have, but, you know, what they had is something I didn't have, which was they could offer me camaraderie. You know, I love lifting with people, and that goes with, you know, all areas of life. It's more fun to do things together. So, you know, don't feel like competition means you got to be this lone wolf who's fighting the world.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I love it. Well, guys, if there's anything you want to come on for and ask Mark about, go ahead and request to speak now, and we'll go ahead and get some of you guys on air if you want to ask Mark any questions. But besides that, that's all I got for today.
Okay, nice. I got a couple comments here. Film Ninja says, love the advice of developing an attitude of play instead of always trying to white knuckle it. Yeah, I mean, like that's pretty big. You know, if you're only looking at how to move forward as like, shit, how can I just like work myself into this frothing frenzy and just, you know, smash my head through a brick wall, that's gonna suck, man. That's not gonna be satisfying at all. So yeah, find that attitude of play. You know, it is a game. You just gotta try and figure out the rules and what kind of outcome is a win for you. And then Brandon here is saying, unfortunately, I find myself kicking ass and then resting. I don't play like you're saying. Yeah, man, the play piece is big. So it's like you got the play of like what does it mean to try and figure out the right path through life? You know, trying to figure out your ideal breakdown of work. Really, it's like you're playing with a stack of habits and routines and efforts. Okay, that's one part of the game. It's like kind of like a strategy game. But then you've got the play of like, I'm gonna go like fiddle around with a guitar and some music production software just because I think it's cool, right? Like, or I'm gonna go, you know, study this topic that I'm into. Like, giving yourself pleasurable flow states is a real gift, especially if you can learn how to do that without relying on some kind of chemical. You know, it's like if you can only get high and drunk in order to enter into a playful flow state, that comes with some drawbacks. So learning how to find those healthy sorts of habits and stuff that you can have some fun with, very, very, very big win. So, all right. I think we pretty much got through everything here today. Remember, my friends, make sure if you're not already on my daily newsletter, make sure you do that. Go to markwebbett.com. You can sign up for that. I put a lot of effort into trying to put out something quality for you to read every single day to help you live as a man of action. And anything else we got to say? I think that's pretty much it. We'll be reopening the Self-Mastery Club here shortly as well, for regular enrollment. But in the meantime, I'm going to be helping the Reforged Man Gold members get completely clean from pornography. We will have the wait list up. If you're on the daily newsletter, you can get on that wait list for the next one, because I imagine that one's going to go even better. And yeah, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in. Ooh, yeah. See you on the next one.